Hello my dear students, welcome to an introductory session of CA Final Paper DT for May 2021 exam. This is CA Smitavi conducting the classes under the auspices of ICAI Calicut branch. Students, when I looked into your syllabus for CA Final, I found that of the 31 chapters which are listed therein, around 12 to 13 chapters are the same which we had discussed at the intermediate level. Of course, I admit that you will be tested in an altogether different fashion and at an altogether different angle at the final level. But since you are familiar with those topics, I thought I would start with something new in this class. Today, we will discuss chapter 13 of your syllabus, which is upon assessment of charitable trust. I am sure that most of you would have had practical experience on this topic in your office. We would have filed returns of charitable trust without knowing the statutory provisions behind that. So, let us discuss today the statutory provisions regarding assessment of charitable trust. See children, a common man calls an organization which is engaged in charity as an NGO. We call it a charitable trust, but common man calls it an NGO. So once you decide to form an NGO, you have to get it registered under any statute. The way you register a company under a Companies Act, a partnership firm under a Partnership Act, you also have to register an NGO. An NGO can be registered under 3 different acts. Either you may register it under Section 8 of Companies Act 2013, the erstwhile Companies Act 1956, or you may register it under the Societies Registration Act 1860, or you may get it registered under the Indian Trust Act 1882. So once you have decided to register an NGO under any of these acts, our next concern would be to claim exemption. In order to claim exemption, we have to look into the provisions of the Income Tax Act 1961. And Income Tax Act 1961 governs the provisions of assessment of charitable trust in 2 different areas. One is under Section 1023C and the other is under Section 11. Let's first discuss Section 1023C. If you see Section 1023C, there are 8 clauses in Section 1023C. Some of the clauses I have marked in red, some of the clauses I have marked in green, and some of the clauses I have marked in yellow. If you see specifically, you can see that 3 items I have marked in red, 3 items I have marked in green, and 2 items I have marked in yellow. The red items are those organizations which are engaged in promoting education. If you see 3 clauses which are marked in red, all those 3 clauses, red clauses, are institutions which are engaged in promotion of education. Items which are marked in green are those organizations which are engaged in medical activities. And items which are marked in yellow are those institutions which are engaged in charitable activity or religious activity. Let's first discuss the provisions relating to education institutions or universities. As I told you earlier, there are 3 clauses which cover educational institutions. One is 1023C 3B, 1023C 3D, and 1023C 6. Let's see what are the similarities and what are the differences among these 3 clauses. Let us first discuss the similarity between all these institutions, that is institutions which are either specified under 3B or which are specified under 3D or which are specified under clause 6. Let us first see what are the similarities among these. Similarity is that all these 3 different types of educational institutions, whichever clause you are covered with, all these 3 education institutions should satisfy 2 conditions. One condition is that you should exist, your educational institution should exist solely for education. Solely for education, only for education, and definitely not for profit. So that is the similarity among these three education institutions. Whichever clause you are covered under, your institution shall be that which is formed solely only for promotion of educational activity, and you should not be established for profit. Now let us see what are the differences among these three sections. 1023C3B covers an education institution which is wholly or substantially financed by government. Now what do you mean by that? Wholly or substantially financed by government means an organization which receives grant from the government for its running, for its day-to-day operation. We know wholly financed by government, we understand 100% of the expenditure will be met by grant receipt from government. But when do you call an organization as substantially financed by government? In order to call an organization as substantially financed by government, the Act has specified that more than 51% of aggregate annual receipts shall be in the form of government grant, which means if annual receipts is 10 lakh, at least 5 lakh and 1 shall be the government grant which is received during the year. So that is regarding section 1023C3AB, an organization which is wholly or substantially financed by the government. No matter how much your total receipts is, you will be eligible for claiming exemption under this section. And also you need not take any approval from income tax authority for the purpose of claiming this exemption. Now let us come to 1023C3AD. 1023C3AD covers those educational institutions whose annual receipts do not exceed 1 crore. So those organizations which have receipts up to 1 crore, including 1 crore, can claim exemption under 1023(3)AD. Again, there is no requirement to get approval from income tax authority. And the last is 1023C6. These covers education institutions whose annual receipts exceed 1 crore and which are not financed by government. So, in order to be covered under 1023C clause 6, the rule is that your receipts shall exceed 1 crore and also you are not wholly or substantially financed by government. Such organizations also can claim exemption. Let us say these self-financing engineering colleges and all, they can also claim exemption under 1023C clause 6, provided you get approval from a prescribed authority, which is of course our income tax commissioner, right? So these are the three various sections that covers education institutions. Let us recollect. 1023C3B covers an education institution which is wholly or substantially financed by government, no matter how much is your receipt, no matter you have, and there is also no requirement to apply for any exemption. 1023C3AD covers an institution whose annual receipts do not exceed 1 crore but there is no government grant, and 1023C6 covers those institutions which are not working under government grant, that is there is no 51% of government grant received, the annual receipts also exceed 1 crore, but such organizations can claim exemption if they get approval from a competent authority of income tax. Let me come to the last column of the slide. It says that in order to be an eligible education institution, there are two conditions to be satisfied. One which says that you should be constituted solely for education, and second which says that yours institution shall not be for profit. How do we identify whether your education institution is that which exists only for education. Of course, the Act is silent upon all these. We will have to refer into various case laws in order to identify as an education institution as the one that exists only for education. One case law which is worth discussing here is the case which was decided in respect of Ganapati Education Trust, wherein it was held that in order to identify an educational institution under this section, under 1023C, we have to look into two conditions, two parameters. One, look into the objects of the trust. That is how we identify whether the objective of this organization is solely education. Two, look into how the funds of the trust are being utilized. The organization should apply its receipts only for educational activities. So these are the two conditions which have been specified by the case law in Ganapati Educational Trust as to identify an organization as the one that is existing only for educational purposes. So in this context, let me explain another case law also which was decided in case of American Hotel Association, wherein the association had spent a part of its receipts outside India and it continued to claim exemption under 1023C. It was held by Supreme Court that though it has not been specifically mentioned in the Act, we have to understand that in order to qualify an education for this education institution under this section, the amount shall be spent in India. Yet another case which I want to discuss with you is the one in the case of Vanida Vishram Trust. In this case, the assessing officer held that the objective of the trust, that is when he read the objects clause of the trust, he found that the objective of the trust was not just education. It had so many objects in its trust deed. Like one, its object was to establish a Vishram Center or rest house for Gujarati women, that is Gujarati orphaned women and widow. The second objective was to construct recreational places and playgrounds for the physical and mental well-being of these women. Third, the objective was to set up libraries and reading rooms for their benefit. And of course, the fourth objective was to promote education. The assessing officer also found out that in effect, the organization was only running education institution. It had never constructed a rest house. It had not constructed a recreational place. On record, it was only carrying out education. Though the objectives, the trust deed mentioned that it had so many objectives. So he denied exemption under section 1023C to this Vanida Vishram Trust. Supreme Court held that the assessing officer had himself conceded to the point that the organization is carrying only education. But the mere fact that the objects of the trust deed contain so many other objectives should not prevent it from claiming exemption under 1023C. And thus, the case was decided in favor of Vanida Vishram Trust and exemption was given to Vanida Vishram Trust. One last case in the case of education institution is that which was decided in respect of Adidanar Educational Trust. Of course, I would like to inform you that this decision was taken in the context of the earlier section 1022 which has been since deleted. But the point is, the crux of this definition has been endorsed by Supreme Court in a lot of other decisions of Queen's Education Society, St. Peter's Education Society, which we will be discussing in detail later. So I just wanted to mention this Adidanar case law. So this is all regarding education institutions. Now we will move on to items which are marked in green Remember the earlier slide where we had mentioned certain items in green. So we'll be moving on to the items which are marked in green, which are medical institutions. But not now. We will discuss, we will debate more from August 17 onwards. See you then. Bye for now. Thank you very much.